through with the trucks for the tea shelters through villages where another NGO left. They stopped the car and wanted to burn down the houses. Okay, and so then together with the local authorities, the magistrates, we signed an MOU that we would take the whole 7th section, which is then about 2,500 families. And so that is this area. This is the typical traditional architecture type of houses, timber poles, on roof poles, and clay in between. Here we'll probably talk more about that. Leogang rural area is a floodplain, so it gets flooded a few times, once or twice a year, depending. Sometimes every 2 or 3 years it comes like 1.5 meter high, which gives a bit of problem when you think about sanitary solutions for toilets, etc. And in that area, it's very poor. It's no schools, no health facilities in that particular area where we're working. Here is Alexander doing some field work. It's still. So this is what this emergency shelter. What you see here, people get targeted, sometimes some ropes, and they collect poles and they build their own temporary shelter. In this particular area, I think some of these camps, people really put up, and maybe one person is sleeping there because the rest of the family stayed with their old house and with their farmers and they stay on their land. But in the beginning, food aid to logistically, if there were 100 people, 100 families, or 100 of those tents together, then it was easy to drop food or provide other aids, things like blankets, etc. So most of these camps actually in the rural areas disappeared now. Grand Graf City, don't know if this picture is, I can still read it, okay. So that's why I put in the other. This is actually the city, it's on the seaside. This is a big river, and the area coordinate is operating in this area, those sections. So here you see how, where people put their, this is a collapsed house. This is the roof of a house that collapsed, big one, and people have put up their makeshift or their shelters there. This is a bit of the overview. So there is a regular street pattern here. There are some water points built like 6 years ago by UNICEF. Boreholes. And so, but here also you have, although you have here, this is a secondary city. The difference is, say, like the photo Jim showed you with the urban areas. These are still on individual plots, most of the houses. So there's some areas, so you still have space, your space in between it, but there are still possibilities to reorganize it together with the community. And the problem here is the river erosion. Yeah, on the river that goes to the sea. I mean, you see the house here on the left, the whole wall of the river has already collapsed. Carrefour, Tissus. Tissus is for tea sewers. That's tea sewers. It's a small well for water. So in the streets, actually, from different areas, water bubbles out of the ground and runs over the streets, and very good drinking water. So there is water is close by there, within 50 meters, 500 meters. So it's very wet in some areas, but it's on a ridge. So this gives you the impression of Tissus, of that area. So it's a new extension of an informal settlement into the mountains. So it's growing. You see, densities are lower here than here, so it's growing into the mountains. Here, it's not. Here you see also another settlement. This is protected area because here's the water company corporation. So this is a catchment area. So this is actually a wall around, and that's a protected area. That's why you see this big reach. This valley is not encroached. This one is, and it's growing, and it will continue, of course. Carrefour, non-Cocteau, it's the flat area near the sea. This is the sea, and this is the national route, or the sea route. This one goes to Leogang, And this one goes into the urban center of Port-au-Prince and on that side of the airport. This area is outside that road and it's can be flooded by the sea, and it's a no construction zone for permanent houses by the government, so that's still an issue for people. But these shelters are allowed, transitional shelters are allowed. That's why we still call our shelters transitional shelters. So, and this also has a regular street pattern, not these two, that's irregular, but this one has a planned structure. One of the big issues here is the rubble and the rubble management. Maybe, I don't know if this is covering that. This is Villa Rosa and Sainte-Marie. Sainte-Marie is actually, this is the area of Sainte-Marie. They live it's from the church, it's private land, so this is a land ownership. We use this area actually to try out certain approaches. And on this area, what I'm showing you here, the density is low. There live about 280 families. This area of Villa Rosa, that goes here, is about a little bit bigger than this area of Sainte-Marie, but here there live about 3,000 people, just to give you an impression of density. Yes, so here we get what you get, all the rubble, but also the concrete and the building technology. It's what I call bloody concrete, literally, because concrete is a very, very difficult material in terms of quality control, and also must realize that people, in this informal settlements, with whatever money they have, a lot of money is put in their house, but of course you want to, if you have money for it, to build 1 square meter of good construction, but then you can have 2 square meter of a little bit poorer construction, but they never had the earthquake before, at least not for generations. Yeah, so it was not a known effect actually, the earthquake. We saw the same in Yogyakarta in Indonesia when they had the big earthquake. It's not, in that area, in Klaten and Yogyakarta, it's not normal that there are earthquakes. It was like 4 generations ago, so the whole building technique is without proper reinforcement, it's just brickwork. And similar here, although they have reinforced concrete columns, but there's mostly only 1 or 2 bars or 3 bars of 8mm diameter in it, plus the cement concrete mix. The sand is it's a lot of content of lime in it, so it makes a very weak construction, and it's actually the main cause. And the problem with concrete is that after they cast it, you can't see what's inside, and it all looks the same. So it's a difficult material, and quality control after pouring it, you can do it with X-ray type of stuff. So this Villa Rosa, but you also see that, it's informal settlements, but they were all also very, very expensive structures there. Really middle class. This is just on the other side of the valley. So we have problems there with density, with erosions, rubble management is of course, because there's no roads here, you can't come here with a truck, so this has to be transported by wheelbarrow or by donkey. You see get a bit of impression of the steepness of the slopes. And here you see also again the steepness. This is the part in the beginning on the left on the first photo that was not or hardly affected by the earthquake. So it's very, very close by actually. It's also very, this is actually how people built. Built before and did that for the last 20 years. Before that there was probably not so much concrete. Here you see also the landslide problems. Jim was also referring on because it's a limestone. Now when we talk shelter, for the shelter program, it's not a house only. Yeah, it's a house plus package. So it's that's the next one. What we do is actually the implementation strategy. How do we implement now? Not in the beginning, but over time, and more information, we have more staff and more known, is that we do field surveys and assessments, house to house, family to family, it's interviewed. And you saw before that we're talking maybe, 13,000, 14,000 families. We do about 8 surveys a day by 2 people. So we have many teams on the different areas in the field to get this baseline data, the family structure, but the damage assessments, the site drawings, the photographs, the ownership or ownership papers if they have, or entitlement. So that's done in that field survey and house-to-house, plot-to-plot actually, because the houses are gone, assessment. And then we have an approach of community action planning. It's actually where the people select their shelter and reconstruction committees, water and sanitation committees, and they are actually in dialogue with them. We develop the programs and try to find solutions for those problems, but also actually to try and make as many problems they themselves, because they have to do it. We are only temporary there, and they did already solve that problem before the earthquake. Yeah, so it's still very much. So that's where we change it more from a, say, supply approach to a demand approach, where they have to do things, and we can try to facilitate the process to permanent housing. Yeah. And we have, for coordinate, everybody whose house collapsed or is damaged by the earthquake is eligible for support. If people are rich, they maybe get technical advice, yeah, maybe no money direct, it's also still support. But the beneficiary committees select, prioritize who gets first a house, who is most in need, who is the most vulnerable, pregnant mother, all the elderly people, etc., etc. So the committees in the subzones within the areas, they do the prioritization of the beneficiary using criteria we agree together, and we verify it with our assessment data so that we ensure not the brother of the chairperson gets 6 houses or something. Yeah, so that's why we do that. And then part of it is the shelter construction. Yeah, you will talk more about that. And the water and sanitation, trying to find solutions for that, and the H's for hygiene, yeah, information. And then we are also looking, depending on the situation, on other community improvements. So that can be footpaths, steps, solid waste disposal, the drainage, especially on the hillside, is very important, and retaining walls for landslides. So that's the strategy, and the community action planning is actually a method, a tool to stimulate the planning process with the residents of that area, of that neighborhood. Yeah? So it's actually then we can facilitate, we can play a role, and there can also be advocacy that they themselves, the committees, go to the local authorities, especially like the water supply, etc., and make the deals. So even also what we are doing now is also that they sign, say, with people who finish their houses or build their houses, they sign a contract with us. We only facilitate that process, and we have certain norms in terms of quality control. And if they are within that, and they sign an agreement, then there's coordinate, but they themselves handle also the building process. And on the long term, we also will go into more disaster risk reduction and livelihood improvement. And basically, much more done by the national NGOs. So they are getting into the program from this year, second half of this year onward, and they will take over that program much more towards livelihood improvement and situations. But for this meeting, but also for the coming years, I mean, what we try to target is to come with a neighborhood plan, yeah, where they prioritize the actions. Then we look what we can do, what are the funds, and how together we can get maybe others interested. Maybe other NGOs can be work into themselves, labor, but the cement maybe by somewhere else, but also with the local authorities, because there is I think still a responsibility with governments, although since the 70s in turn that is disappearing with social housing and informal settlements. So thank you for